Hey, what's up? You want to know what I noticed? Fighting games have become easier, and that's okay. The fighting game genre is one of the hardest genres to get into and stick with, just because of the way it operates. Now, what makes a fighting game hard exactly? There are actually a lot of things that make a fighting game difficult, but for the sake of not making this part of the video too long, let's look at it from the perspective of a casual player trying to become better at fighting games to play against the best of the best. So, most beginners trying to become better at fighting games would say that remembering combos, executing those combos, remembering frame data, learning how to move properly, and finally learning the notations would be considered a pretty difficult task at first. I just picked these aspects of fighting games because I remember having a hard time with these things when I first started playing. We could go deeper and look at these aspects a little closer to go into further detail, but let's just look at these things at face value for now. Now that we have established the things I've said previously are just some of the elements that make fighting games difficult, we shouldn't have to worry about them in easier fighting games, right? Let's see. That's strange. You still have to do all these things in easier fighting games, especially when it comes to combos. For example, in fighters you can always opt out and do the auto combo, which will give you subpar damage. But if you want actual damage, you can always optimize the combo by doing jump cancel light medium attacks, or a variation of that combo. So let's say a player no longer a casual has these aspects of fighting games I named previously down to a T. Great, now try them against the... You see, most people who play fighting games have been playing the genre for many years, so they already have established fundamentals for fighting games, which makes it easier for them to play other fighting games and be sort of decent at them. While the newer player will be learning the game itself on top of strengthening their fighting game fundamentals. Finding people your skill level can be one of the hardest challenges to face, especially if you're getting into an older fighting game. One thing I learned from playing fighting games is to try and play them when they first release, because newer players will also try them out, which in turn makes it easier to learn the game, because other newer players are trying to learn as well. Okay, so you're finally having your first match with an opponent your skill level. You get a knockdown and... Wait, why did he wake up DP? Now, this may sound like a scrub quote, but it's true if we really look at it. The hardest thing in fighting games is fighting other people, just for the simple fact that not everyone will think the same as you. You see, what may be logical for you to do in a certain situation may seem illogical for someone else to do. Some players will think logically, some players may not think at all. And it's up to you, the player, to adapt to that, or force your opponent to adapt to you. Once a player has learned how to adapt quickly for one opponent, they must be able to do that for all opponents. Cool, so now that the player has learned how to adapt quickly, they should be able to win more, right? Right? Well... And this, my dear viewers, is where improvement comes in. Now don't get me wrong, you're still improving by being able to adapt to your opponent, but sometimes your opponent will just have your number and will know how you think, which means you will most likely lose to them more than you beating them. In situations like this, you have to look at yourself as a player, and that's another thing that makes fighting games hard, because finding something you did wrong during a match can be sort of difficult at times, especially if you don't know what you're looking for. Now, most people would just give up and just go back to playing online without really improving, because most fighting games don't tell you where you messed up at. It's up to you to figure that out. Now you might be asking, what does any of this have to do with fighting games becoming easier? Well, the aspects that make fighting games difficult are still in easier fighting games, which means fighting games are still hard. The only thing that's changed is how accessible it is for newer players to pick up and play. Now, you might disagree with me, and that's okay. But if fighting games have truly become so easy, why isn't everyone or even casual players at a top level? The reason for this is because you still have to work for it, and some people will simply put in more work than you. No one is going to win a Dragon Ball FighterZ tournament knowing only the basics of the game, because that's only going to take you so far. So, in summary, fighting games have become more accessible to bring in newer players to the genre, which is what we want, and all of the aspects of fighting games that are considered difficult are still in easier fighting games. Besides, even if fighting games are more easier, people are still going to get hit by the same Kid Buu mix.